Welcome to the fourth session of the second day of AAC's conference stream. Next up we have Emma LoveDay, who's Head of Marketing, Gaming and Betting for The Sun. Emma brings with her a wealth of experience in the betting and gaming sector before moving across to fulfill this role for The Sun. Today she'll be talking about brand advocacy, how to harness people power advertising. Right, over to you, Emma.
Hello, everyone. So I am the head of marketing at The Sun for our gaming division. We're the biggest daily newspaper in the UK, and we also have one of the biggest online bingo brands in the UK. So it's a real meeting of two worlds. One thing that's really special about The Sun is that everyone has an opinion about us, even if they don't read the paper every day. When we recently stopped putting page 3 girls in the paper, there was the obvious kind of backlash from our core audience. But one of the really surprising things was that there was a group of young females who felt that we were punishing glamour models for not allowing them to pursue this career because we were pandering to burn your bra feminists. Now, the reason I bring this up is because we made a product evolution to cater for a family audience and uncovered a group of brand advocates that we would never have targeted with our own media. So what I'm talking about today is harnessing the power of this advocacy. And I'm going to show you some examples of some advocacy campaigns that have gone beyond just a PR exercise and have actually delivered some real commercial benefit. I'm going to warn you, I'm not really going to do an awful lot of demonstrating of gaming examples. And the reason why is I think as an industry, we tend to look in on ourselves and do try and copy each other. But there's not actually an awful lot of gaming advocacy going on. So actually, I think it's probably a great opportunity for us to see what else is going on outside of our industry and see if we can learn anything from that. So, what is advocacy? Well, it's not just setting up a refer a friend program. That's absolutely not what it is. Obviously, incentivized advocacy has a place. We all know it delivers a great CPA. Friends who play with friends play longer. That's all fantastic. And actually, the gaming industry does this really, really well compared to other industries. Telecoms is another example of someone who brings that into the product itself with like magic number lists and family lists. But ultimately, advocacy has to come from a feeling. Now, and people who are willing to talk about your brand and talk about your product and recommend it. Affiliates traditionally fell into this silo of people who reviewed your site and told others about your site. But customers have become increasingly savvy about how the affiliate business model works. So simply putting a review up on someone's site no longer gives you that recommendation of a brand. And actually, a lot of reviews on affiliate sites tend to be numbers and facts based. What's your welcome bonus? What software are you on? How many games do you have? What's your wagering requirements? What's your cash out options? These are all quite clinical things that make people think about a product and not really feel about a product. So search trends are showing that people have become more savvy. They're looking for voucher codes. They're looking for the best deal. And as an industry, we've then become very noisy. Everyone's pushing their own welcome bonuses or comps and bonuses, and it becomes a race to the bottom of value. So why should we invest money into advocacy? Advocacy, in its true definition, is affinity plus an action. Social media has made it really easy for people to do the action, so a like button, I heart something, I love something. But here's a question for you all. It's a bit of audience participation. Put your hands up if you have some of these social buttons on your site, on your content. Okay, only 2 of you, that's amazing. For the 2 of you that are in the room, who put them on their site because of SEO reasons, to get social signals and links back to your site? Yeah. It's the primary reason why most people have those buttons on their site. How many of you have a content strategy? No one. A couple of people. How many of you have a social media strategy? A couple of you. Very few people actually tie these two together. So if you do have these social link buttons on your site, if you haven't, you probably should get some. It's a really good for SEO. If you have these on your site, there's a valuable source of data about who shares your content and what they do with engaging with that content. People who then have a social media strategy and can see what what content is being shared and liked on Facebook and Twitter, etc. You put those two together, you actually come up with a really good cycle of how people are engaging content, using it, who's pushing that through, and who is then becoming your advocate. And they'll be the people that you should target as your influencers. But it also tells you a lot about how people are connecting with your brand and the content that they feel is the most representative of what you're doing in your business. So it brings us on to what I call the triangle of trust. This is all very well making loads of articles and everything else and pushing that around Twitter and Facebook, but why are we all doing it? And ultimately, everyone's going to have a CFO or a balance sheet that they're going to have to explain to. So I've used this slide a few times when explaining to CFOs why I'm doing stuff. Now, we all know that we're paying for this and trying to push people from being a prospect into a converting customer. Recommendations form a great part of that, and recommendations from someone who's a brand advocate are really strong. And that brand advocate can obviously be an affiliate or an existing customer. Once they've come through, you get your revenues, great. But then how do you reward that brand advocate for pushing this person through for you at a cheaper rate than you would have done if you'd put it through PPC or some other paid media? Traditionally, this reward has been a refer a friend program or some other kind of incentive. But actually, as brand advocates are becoming more sophisticated in social media, that financial reward may not actually be the motivating factor of why they're talking about your brand. So you kind of got to think of some other ways of rewarding them. So people in this room may or may not have heard about the whole kind of growing millennials target audience of people who are creating video blogs and earning loads of money off of that sort of stuff. These people are always looking for content or something to say that's original and actually says more about them than it does about the brand that they're promoting. And I'm not talking about a viral campaign, because what does that mean? That's actually like digital flu, right? I mean, what does that even mean? We all talk about content being king, but in this world, content is actually currency. And by giving them unique things to say about you or an emotional response to something you're doing, they will then start to create that content for you. They now become the kings of their social sphere, and your content and your brand is the currency that keeps them there. You've got to think of this as kudos, not reward. So the difference between using social media as a broadcast platform, which is traditionally what gaming people do, and not just gaming, other industries as well, is pushing that offers and promotions out, versus using the true power of these social media platforms, which is engaging all of those signal tools, those emotional signal tools that I showed you before, and allowing people to do the action part of the advocacy formula in a really, really easy way. But you still need to give them affinity, otherwise the formula doesn't work. And why does this all matter? Well, to bring it back to an ROI, word of mouth recommendations and also advocacy through social increases your propensity to purchase by between 20 and 50%, depending on the platform or the product that you're promoting. Some econometric studies that I've seen even pitch this higher, but that's when you're using it in a layered kind of integrated campaign. If you're just looking at how you're pushing on social media, this is the kind of realm that you're in. And this is a figure from Twitter. So if you are increasing your propensity to purchase, all of a sudden your efficiency of your marketing increases by double digits. So, some of you will still be with me. We've engaged our customers. We've added value by content to give them, or what we want to do with the product, or how they are using and experience us. Focus on quality content, not just pushing out promotions and pictures of a cat, but actually kind of relevant stuff targeted to the to your advocates. Whether that might be an exclusive tip to one of your sports betting customers, or I don't know, a clue as what the next promotions are going to be to some of your valuable bingo players or what have you. But the key thing on the end of this journey is being authentic. And actually, this is where a lot of people fall down, because they see that their competitors have put pictures of cats up and they've got loads of engagement and reach scores. But what does a cat say about your brand? Not an awful lot. There's a saying that's quite well known that's, I think, therefore I am. This is actually really wrong when it comes to brands. When it comes to brands and the relationships we have with them, we actually feel, therefore we are. And this is one of the most difficult things to do, because you've got to kind of understand what it is that people are feeling about you beyond anyone else. So whether you're an operator or affiliate or a B2B provider, you are a brand and someone feels something about that brand. Each of you in this room today are your own brand. You will walk away from this session today thinking something about the information that I've given you. But what you'll remember, and whether you buy into that information, is how you felt when I've delivered it to you. Was you buying it? Was you did you think this was inspiring? Don't answer that out loud. So, when was the last time that any of you in this room did a brand wheel of your product or website? Most people think about a brand as the name or the symbol, but actually that's quite a small component of the total piece. And not a lot of people actually review this all the time. I have this printed out with our actual key attributes filled in on each one of my team's desks. We also have a big one up on the wall. Every time we want to do a promotion or a campaign, or if it's just sending a newsletter out or whatever, we always need to keep making sure that this is in line with all of these factors. Otherwise, we're just saying something that we're thinking in our head and not taking into consideration what our customers are actually feeling about us, and making sure that's being reinforced. But when it comes to gaming, essentially, we're all a bunch of wieners. Our industry has very little product differentiation. If you think of a hot dog's a hot dog, right? Everyone expects the same core product, essentially. And you'll be full up, and you'll go to a barbecue and you have a hot dog or whatever. But what will make you say if it's really delicious is the freshness of the bun, or the condiments used, or if there's a bit of onion, if it floats your boat. So when you bite in and you go, oh, this is amazing, it's not the core product, it's not the facts, it's not how nutritional it is that is going to make you want to eat another one. It's all the other stuff around it that is that gives you that feeling of the product, of the experience. Right, now some of you will still be on this journey with me. Some of you will now be thinking, oh, I wish I had a hot dog for lunch. Some of you might be checking your emails. That's absolutely fine. This whole journey of advocacy and content, you drop people off on the way, and that's to be expected. But for those of you that are with me and have ticked the brand box, just consider this. Vigour in your advocates is contagious. It will make us think or feel strongly and adds to the power and enlarges our field of action. And this is what you're looking to do. So you find people, give them the right content, engage them in the brand. They're all sold. They're all great. You want to inspire them to act and to increase that reach. And we call them influencers, you look at reach stats on Facebook, but ultimately it's still giving them a sense of how they are promoting your brand for you. And this is the actual opportunity. This is the bit you need to harness here. So once you've done all the work with the brand, you understand your brand, you're loving it, it's great, wonderful. You've still got a product to sell. Everyone's got a product to sell. Otherwise, no one's going to pay us to do any of this anyway. So this is the bit you need to be constantly questioning every time you do a campaign, every time you want to do something. How are you linking these two together? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you a couple of examples that I think are really good for different reasons. And the first one, a brand that everyone will know, is Coke and their Share a Coke campaign. Before this campaign, if someone had told me that they'd gone to a shop and bought me a can of Coke, I would have accepted it gratefully, been a little bit bemused at why they bothered, and probably told all my mates that they were heading for a breakdown and needed to get a booking in the Priory. But then this campaign came along. And within a couple of weeks, I had 2 or 3 family and friend members send me pictures on WhatsApp and Facebook of them holding a can of Coke or a bottle of Coke with my name on it, and that they bought it for me. And instead of feeling like they were a bit weird for buying me a can of Coke, suddenly I felt special. I felt like they thought about me. And therefore I had a really nice, warm, fuzzy feeling about a fizzy drink, and not normally the sugary, fuzzy feeling that it caused on my teeth. So what was genius about this is that they then inspired people to go into collector mode. It wasn't enough that you'd found a friend's name or your own name. You suddenly wanted all the members of your family, and you wanted a mum one, and you wanted a dad one. And if you couldn't find your own one, well, that just caused people to go into meltdown. Now, Coke was really genius in turning this advocacy in not just a feeling, not just a response, but into something that then went on to go and do a commercial job. They created a digital product that allowed you to go and see where you could buy a Coke with your name on it. So Coca-Cola created a digital product to allow you to find where you could go and buy a product that is probably one of the most distributed products in the world. If I had asked you before this campaign, where can you buy a can of Coke? Anywhere. I'm probably no more than about 3 meters away from a can of Coke at any one point in my life. But people were now searching online and giving their details so that they could go and find a can of Coke. And if they couldn't find the can of Coke, you could go and get one made for a price higher than the product value that was there originally. And because it may not be in your local store, I then would go and travel out of my way to go and find a can of Coke. Anyway, I spoke a lot about Coke in a country that maybe it's more freely available than the cans. But in essence, I think it's a fantastic campaign. Advocacy doesn't need to be frenzied, and it doesn't need to be, kind of really crazy. It can also be something that you feel personally about a brand. And this is an example that came from the Times, which is one of the other publications that Murdoch owns in our building. And I'm just going to play you a quick video about how they did this. Essentially, this advocacy campaign wasn't about asking you to share content, but it was asking you to have an emotional feeling about the content that we already produced. So it lifted the curtain on how the journalists actually create the content.
I want to see things for myself, and I'm really determined. Like, there's nowhere I haven't got into.
Berlusconi screwed Italy, and this is what I show. If you're the Times and you have a typeface that's named after you, you should use it.
This is my burqa, my helmet, and coffee sachets.
In an ideal world, you hit the button, 20 guys get in a helicopter, come over and do what they need to do to get you home.
The thing I like most about Peter's work, it appears to be respectable, and it isn't. It's actually filth, and it shouldn't be legal.
The British soldiers like to make fun and come up and push you here. I'm incredibly curious. My mum would say I'm nosy. I want to tell the stories of people who have no way of getting their own stories told.
Susie Jagger, the Deputy Foreign Editor, had been expecting a phone call. The phone call didn't come.
I then get shot twice. You can see Jack there and his face is completely squelched and pulped. And he says to me, "And don't worry, it's going to be all right."
So whether you read the Times or not, you will now have a feeling about the journalists that create the content, and you may well have a different opinion about the Times now and think, how do the words and the pictures jump off the page? What went into it to create those stories? And what was great, actually, you would have seen that in the film, is it didn't just win awards for marketing campaigns. It actually, our competitors came out and also gave it accolades. And the reason why is because it talked to an industry and the journalists and the people in the industry and made them feel proud of the job that they do. So advocacy isn't just about promoting a product or a service. It's also about how you feel part of a movement and a collective consciousness about something. The other example of actually a couple of businesses that are now growing because of advocacy, and this is potentially something that as affiliates and digital businesses and business owners that we may want to have a look at even more and start investing in, is companies like Uber and Airbnb. So they create a platform that allows people to connect to people, but they didn't start off with big marketing budgets. Actually, most of their businesses have been brought to scale by word of mouth because they created products that are really simple for me to explain to you and why you should use them. But there is a danger in advocacy campaigns with these types of products in that your ownership of that brand and your ownership of the message is then diminished. So you recommend Uber to me, I do my first trip. If I have a really bad experience, it's do or die. I'm never going to go back again because they've got no brand collateral to back it up. But it is an example of something where you can build a business from quite small to scale in a really quick and relatively cheap way. So what have you all got to do today? If you've got brand advertising budgets, you need to go and re-look at your planning of them. In the last year and going into 2015, brand advertising overtook direct response advertising. So your customers are seeing all of this. They're being influenced by all of this. If you're not part of it, you're going to just be looked at as a sales channel. So the big green elephant in the room, and I said I wouldn't talk about gaming really, but is Paddy Power. Because they actually do this already. They do this really well. They have a really strong voice. You do an image search of Paddy Power. I don't work for Paddy Power. I'm not being paid by Paddy Power, by the way. You don't just see a collection of banners and offers. You actually see a mood board of their voice. Now, this is quite a big quite a big mountain to climb against Paddy Power, and I'm trying to do the same thing, and I'm sure a lot of other people are going to be as well. And it's not to copy what they do, but copy their achievement. They're also benchmarked by all of us in the room, and even outside of gaming. There's an awful lot of conversations I've had with marketing departments and agencies where they'll go, oh, well, if we can do something a bit like Paddy Power. Well, no, because that's Paddy Power's voice and message. We've got to find our own way through. And actually, it was really funny. Someone in our office, a young sort of junior intern, come up and was like, oh, you should bet with Paddy Power. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Why? What is it that you like about Paddy Power? And he went, oh, I don't have an account, but I just think their adverts are really fun. So it does even go beyond just people's experience of the product. The reach is further afield. But what's important to know is that, obviously, and it's a bit cliche, I suppose, but before there was a Facebook, there was a Google. Before there was a Google, there was a Microsoft. Before there was an iPod, there was a Sony Walkman. And all of those started off with someone sitting in their room with an idea. So none of this is unachievable, even if you don't have like tens of millions of pounds worth of budget. A good idea, a good nugget of content can go a long way, as long as it's rooted in your brand, and then people will share it because it's authentic and it's engaging and they get some kudos out of it. It's like sharing a joke. So I guess people should just decide what kind of wiener they want to be. Back to the hot dog, it's just a fun slide to end on. We're all concentrating on why you should eat the hot dog and not what the experience of eating it is. So I hope you'll see coming through in a lot of the advertising and campaigns that we're going to be doing with The Sun that this is something that we're building on and we think is really important. And I think actually in an industry where there's an awful lot of shouting and noise, there's not a lot of voices being heard. And so hopefully if you take anything away from today, it's about identifying what your voice is and then leveraging it to create a reach of your brand in the space.
Thank you, Emma. Do we have any questions from the audience? Okay. I'd like to ask a question, actually. First one would be, how would you separate and measure the impacts of brand advocacy, and also more sort of leaning on from that, the ROI from that marketing investment in that type of brand?
Yeah, so one of the slides earlier about that kind of propensity, uplift in propensity is the key thing. But you can more simply see that in some other, freely available analytics and sort of Google Analytics and Facebook Analytics and things. And that's when you start seeing your engagement increase, you tend to see your referred traffic, but you also then start to see things like click-through rate on your brand ads going up. So then there's not normally a kind of direct correlation between you've done some advocacy campaigns or create some live videos and then you get direct sales. But what you'll start to see is a growth in your kind of referred traffic and brand engagement metrics.
Which department does this sort of come under? What does it sit with? Does it come under acquisition or media or customer service or brand?
It actually comes under everything, right? So if you push a message out to acquire customers, but then they talk to your customer services team and they don't get the same brand, that core brand essence all the way through, then they won't trust your advertising again. And in this sector, we're going to see more and more of the direct response channels that we would use for acquisition being used for reacquisition and also retention at propensity to churn cycles. So if your whole customer journey is not being constantly reinforced and their experience that they bought into at the point of acquisition is not their experience of the product and of the marketing messages they get throughout their life, then they won't actually trust your marketing messages off-site. So
question.
Hiya, it's Vicky from Bingo Cams. Gambling's quite a private thing, so a lot of people don't like people to know that they're gambling. So how would you tactfully get around that in terms of finding advocates? Is it just the fact that Coke will have loads more advocates and we've got smaller ones, so we need to take better care of them? Like, how do you deal with that side of things?
Yeah, so I think it's about the appropriateness of the message, the content, and the channels. So if you, I completely agree with you, I mean, about people not necessarily wanting to classify themselves as a gambler, but how many conversations have you had in an office where someone goes, oh, if I won the national lottery, what would I give? What would I buy? What would I do? I'd buy an island. What would I do? I'd live on the island. I don't know. Or you're in a pub or whatever, and you hear people talking about the bet that they didn't win. If that had come in, I would have won. I would have done this, or the odds on that were amazing. So people, especially in the UK, betting and gambling is part of our of the cultural references that we do talk about all the time. And I think actually, again, I don't work for Paddy Power, but I think one of the reasons why they've done a really good job is they found a British sense of humour about it all, and they didn't take the, you know, they found the joke and the essence of how people have that banter around it. But some of the stuff that you'll see coming out of Sun Bingo over the next couple of months is actually about the way that people feel in the communities around bingo. If you ever read the chat rooms, they're always talking about someone's life going on. It's a whole living soap opera going on in a gambling product. So I think it's about kind of understanding people's emotional connection to what they're doing. They may not want to share a link to a slot game, fair enough, but they'll talk about something around your product and what they're doing and what they feeling about it. So it's difficult. There's no magic wand to say how do you all create advocacy around casino products? Because if that was a magic formula, everyone would be doing it. But people talk about their telephone provider, and that's really boring. So I don't necessarily agree about the stigma around gambling. I think it's actually part of UK culture, and people talk about it all the time. It's just pulling it out into a conversational piece that they feel connected to.
Thank you. Do you have any more questions? Just raise your hand if you have any questions. I've got another one. The big question: how much do you need to invest?
Well, that budget is a bit bottomless, really. I suppose it's how much you want to invest. But high budgets doesn't necessarily mean that people do it well. There's actually loads of opportunities to do crowdsourcing content now. So, things like... I can't remember the name of the site now, but anyway, so you can obviously commission people to create videos for you, and actually the Saga Candy Crush game that's now their advert with people walking down the street and the jelly bears bouncing around them, that actually came from a crowdsourced brief where King asked people to show them how they would be in the world with the Candy Crush game, and someone did this little video and cuddly bears and things, and then they turned it into an advert. So the point is that there's actually lots of content that you can get created at fairly low budgets.
Right, I have another one. How does this work with affiliates optimizing on conversion, not content?
Yeah, so again, that kind of point about it being a really noisy industry and it all being offer-led and so on, if everyone's kind of right about the way that the AAC is going to go, where we're not going to be able to advertise offers on TV, etc., then affiliates will become more and more important in being able to for customers to find the right offer, but operators are not going to want to keep eroding those margins, especially after the point of consumption kicked in. So everyone's going to have to try and find a way to increase that click-through with a brand recognition. And so actually I think there's going to be there's a much more development between content affiliates, not just offer aggregators, for brands to be able to allow affiliates to become part of their advocacy strategy, actually. So, but it's really important that affiliates come into the conversation. Over the last year, we've held about 2 or 3 summits where we've invited affiliates to come in. They've had a tour of the Sun editorial floors. They've had people from around the business talk to them about what it means of the Sun, how we care about the Sun. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go and change the content they write on site, but when they are thinking about what they're going to be doing with us, we're a bit more front of mind. So it's not always just brands pushing a funny video out. It's the whole works of how you communicate what you're doing, why you're doing it, why you care about it. And if you tell people enough, they will start to push that message forward.
Obviously, you brought all that in-house, you were telling me earlier. So is that kind of, when you had this conversation with affiliates, are you finding you're having to be quite picky and kind of filter who you work with in this sense? Or if they don't understand that brand, or if they don't understand your advocacy?
Well, one of the things, because we're launching a new gaming brand as well, we just launched it, Sun Play, and we were with a different partner to our Sun Bingo partner, we realised that there was going to be quite a lot of gaps in between the marketing of those if we was to have different affiliate programs. So by having one affiliate program that can cater for all of those gaming brands together, it meant that we could definitely keep the brand association with the Sun and the Sun brand message consistent through all of those products. So what we've done is worked on creating content packs that we can send to affiliates so that we can have more of an influence over the message than just them scraping off, as I say, like welcome offers and wagering requirements. So you can't expect affiliates to go and create all that content themselves. You have to sort of work together. But I don't think you're more picky about the affiliates that you allow to represent your brand. You just help them in providing a richer review of your site.
Another question. Hello, over
Vicky.
there.
So just, obviously we're operators, but from an affiliate point of view, would you say they're better off having a brand? So not being like free bonus offers, being something, just a random word, or something that you can actually, is brandable. Like I had a petite clothing site and it was called Yo Shorty and people loved it. But it's like, is it that sort of thing that I think affiliates do find it hard, because they are like top 10, isn't it? It's all that sort of stuff that people want, but how can they get to that next level?
Well, Two Little Fleas are doing quite well, and they don't have an offer or even a gaming brand in their URL. Which Bingo is a brand on its own now. Bingo Cams is a brand on its own. So Bingo Port is a brand. I suppose anything that you can have something that's recognisable and that means something is a brand in itself. So I do think that affiliates should have their own brand strategy. Is it going to be at the same scale as Coke? Probably not. But it doesn't mean that you can't take some of the learnings of what they've done to differentiate yourself from another affiliate, because the content affiliate business model is very much about building that trust with someone. Are they going to trust what you're saying on site? Are they going to click the link? Are they going to convert? So I think that's all part of that as well. And then also because you are also have a B2B relationship with the operators, is how bought in are they to you doing their advocacy for them? So I think you should create your own brands.
I think we have to bring things to a close there because it comes in a time slot. Thank you very much, Emma. It's very, very interesting. Thank you.